Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and welcome back to Alex Asks. And last time, I asked you, lovely lot, what is it exactly that makes Breath of the Wild just so damn good? Well, as is tradition, here's just what a few of you had to say. The Southern Ladybug said, "My dreams have been accomplished in the new Zelda Breath of the Wild. I can now commit arson by setting a field ablaze, and I can run through the tundra nude." I'm not sure I really need to say anything to that, but I will. Actually, no, I won't. It really does speak for itself. Byron Patterson says, "I think the Breath of the Wild is an amazing game. It's showing off the main potential of the Switch. Graphics look amazing at 900p, but when you hear it on paper, it makes people cringe." Wow, that's a word that really gets overused these days. But when you see it, it's gobsmacking, like this. That's literally what it means. And to top it off, the story is amazing, and it's hard to prevent talking about spoilers because you want to talk about it. I can't. Been cut off again. This has been happening all the time and I'm getting really annoyed with this. But the main gist of everything's there, and I have to agree wholeheartedly, especially the thing about the 900p. Lots of people heard it and they're like, that's not even 1080, but you bear in mind most games rendered are generally rendered, especially on things like the Xbox One, they're rendered in either 720p or 900p. There are not that many Xbox One games that are actually rendered in 1080p, and it's fine. It doesn't need it. It's upscaled again to 1080p, but unless you've got a really keen eye or you're really looking at every final pixel, it's really not even noticeable, and for most people, they really just don't care. Also, mate, I feel your pain when it comes to not talking about spoilers. It's so hard. My girlfriend hasn't played it yet, and she said she doesn't want any spoilers, so I'm just going mad instead. Not a Human appropriately says, "I think it's the horses. They are great. Also, Zelda is British, so another thumbs up." Although it's not really make or break. Oh, right, it has a guy called Robbie in it. He's called... Oh, right, it has a guy called Robbie in it. He's number one. I have to say, though, I do really like the horses. I like the fact that it does feel like you are actually riding a beast with its own mind. And that's just not the fact that it doesn't run into trees and that it follows paths and things like that, but that it does get frustrated and annoyed, and it tries to throw you off if you try and push it too hard and stuff like that. Unless it's the... I nearly went to a spoiler there. I'm sure some people have found it annoying because it's not just as simple as get on horse, direct horse goes, but in a way it just sort of adds to the realism, and you don't need a horse to get around. To be honest, I don't use the horses very often because I find, you know, sort of they're fine, but you come up to a cliff and you can't get up it or you can't get down it without holding ZL and then going clippity cloppity clop, and then they fall off and they die, and you gotta go to a special place, and it's just inconvenient. Commando Kitty Cat / James Beard 0609 says, "I don't like the fact that we had to wait 6 years from Skyward Sword to get Breath of the Wild." Yes, because I did indeed ask people if they have negative thoughts, do leave them as well, because we like to get a balance going on. Although, spoiler alert, there aren't many bad things to say, or at least that's what you lot said. It was a very, very long wait, it's true, and I think it was worthwhile. It was definitely worth it at the end of it, and the amount of delays, two long years of delays, but the end result is so wonderful, and it's gonna go down in history as one of the most critically acclaimed games of all time. I'd say it was worth it. You know, something, if it's good things come to those who wait. Let's leave it at that. Laughing Man 123 said, "One con I have is Gerudo. It's full of sand, which I hate because it's rough. It's rough and it's irritating and it gets everywhere." Is that what he does? He does a weird thing. It's on the balcony. I'm talking about Star Wars Episode 2. It's possibly the worst line in the entire film, and I love it. Used Vanderburgh says, "Breath of the Wild is so good because the freedom it gives you. Sorry for my bad English. I am Dutch. Do not apologize. Your English is fantastic, and if you need help with translation tools, you go for it, dude. If it helps you speak English, you know, you're trying. That's the important thing. You can speak English far better than I can speak Dutch, I'm sure." And yeah, I think that's what a lot of it boils down to with Breath of the Wild. It's just so free. You can just go off and do what you want, when you want. You want to run up that mountain, you go for it, dude. You want to jump into the sea and try and swim as far as you can. You won't get very far, but good on you, more power to you. In fact, if you had a load of stamina things, you could keep going and going. I might try that. Random Dave 7 says, "In Zelda, everyone is having a different experience. You can discover things your friends haven't found and vice versa, and then compare notes. Not since the pre-internet days with the likes of Mario 64 have I experienced this in a game." Oh, you've just, like, woken, you've like opened this chest full of nostalgia for me, because I loved hearing about that stuff. And you always heard it around the playground. It was always these sort of rumors going around it. You can do certain things, and 9 times out of 10 they'd be nonsense, like finding Mew under the truck. But then occasionally you'd hear that, you know, you'd hear something that was actually real, like when you get 120 stars, you can go in the cannon, go on the roof, and Yoshi's there, and you just sort of think, well, I can see the cannon thing, but Yoshi being there, really? And he gives you 100 lives? All sounds really arbitrary, but it turned out to be true, and it's wonderful. And you hear these things in Breath of the Wild, like putting octo balloons on certain things, or you can freeze an enemy and then blow them with a coral leaf off a cliff, and then they fall and shatter. It's just... And, you know, you don't know whether it's true, and then you try it out yourself, and it works! Or sometimes it doesn't, but it's marvellous, and it really... As random Dave7 said, that's something you don't really get in games very often anymore. I think that's something that's very... I'd say it's very Nintendo, but there were many other companies doing it back in day. But it's just so wonderful to have that sort of communication and that kind of exchange with other people about a game back after so long. I agree. Well done, Nintendo. Gallifreyan says, I still can't get over walking through doors. No loading. Well, apart from when you go into a shrine, but we'll gloss over that. Yeah, on the whole, loading times are almost non-existent for the main sort of going around in the main wilderness. As far as I know, there aren't any loading screens unless you want to fast travel or something like that. I mean, occasionally you get them if you're doing a mission. You get the little mini one where it's just a black screen with a little thing in the corner. It's down there for me, but I'll change it around just for you. But apart from that, you want to go into a house, you just go up to the house, you just open the door, and you're in there. And it's just wonderful. It really does... I didn't even think about that, actually, because in pretty much every other open world game, generally going through doors is the only thing that does have a loading screen. So it's really nice to see that on the whole, minus shrines and those little ones, there are basically no loading screens in the world. In the world. Sundar says, the main thing that I think makes Breath of the Wild so fantastic to me is just how many times it answers with yes. Very minor first hour spoilers. Actually, to be honest, if you've been keeping up with any coverage, you'll be fine with these. Can I stasis a boulder, build up speed, and grab onto the rock and go flying with it? Yes! It's difficult to do, but it can be done. We did a video way back when about, you know, sort of things that you can do in Breath of the Wild, and this is going back to when it was on the Wii U, hadn't even been announced for the Switch, and we couldn't even get direct feed of it. We had to film the screen. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, we tried that, and we just, you know, we had a couple of practice runs, and the first time we tried it, it actually worked, and, you know, Link went flying for a good bit, and then fell off, and every subsequent one, he just sort of didn't. He just sort of got knocked off immediately. It was a real shame, but we did. It did work. It did, I promise. Can I magnesis this crate and wreck freak out some bokoblins with it? Sure! Just all the times I've wondered if I can do something, only to find out that yes was the answer. That is almost magical to me. Me too. Strip of Paper says, Breath of the Wild is an amazing game, but one thing I can't get over is how they took out a little too much Zelda out of the formula. I still just want my hook/claw shot. I just want my hook/claw shot, okay? Still 9.5 out of 10 though. Now, whilst I might not agree with this wholeheartedly, I do know where you're coming from. With things like, you know, the hook shot and even to an extent like the boomerang and stuff like that, they're either not there or they've been watered down. I mean, I like what they've done with the boomerang, and overall I think it was a very bold move to change Zelda this much, and I think it paid off, but for long-time fans we were expecting a little bit more hook shot or, you know, hover boots and things like that, or iron boots, and it's not there, and that is kind of a bit... But you know what? Things change, don't they? So let's just get on with it. Rytek or Retek or something along those lines says, my favorite thing about Breath of the Wild is that the world is so big it's distracting. I often try and complete a story objective, but wait, I have a side quest, then I see a tower, then I see a shrine, I get distracted from my distractions and it's crazy. Also, I have my exams coming up. Oops. Oh, I am terrible for that. I am so bad at just sticking to a task. I do exactly the same thing, you know, I go on so many tangents, I just sort of think, oh, I'll maybe go and check out this corner of the map, and on the way there I'll find myself, you know, veering the wrong way, and you're seeing all these interesting things, and ooh, I found a savannah, and ooh, look, a giant horse, and, you know, going through, and then, you know, you find that you have gone, you know, the other end of the map, and it's just wonderful in that regard, because you can just get lost in that world, and that's something that you don't get in many other, you know, open world games, and I think part of that is due to, having the camera so far back allows you to really take in the world properly. It's not quite as immersive, say, as a first-person experience, but it really just allow you to really appreciate the world, especially considering how large this bugger is. And finally, GCool19 says, I think what makes Breath of the Wild so amazing is that you can literally do anything you want in whatever order you want, and on the Switch version, anywhere you want. That is the real kicker, isn't it? It really is it's freedom on a plate. You can do it in any order, you could even argue that in regards to, say, things like the main dungeons and even the final dungeon without having to go too far into things, you can realistically do them in any order. There's nothing saying you have to do Dungeon 1, then Dungeon 2, then Dungeon 3, or even you have to do any of the dungeons at all. You don't have to do any of them, you can do some of them, and you can still go through and complete the game. It really is freedom on a platter, and that's why people have been able to beat the game already in under an hour, which is frankly bonkers. Massive thanks to everybody who left a comment. Unfortunately, I can't read all of your comments out because my throat is now very, very dry, and also just, reasons. However, of course, you do have a chance to get one of your comments read out in the next episode. And so my question for you this week is, even though Breath of the Wild is so good, it's not perfect, even though we gave it a 10 out of 10. So a lot of people getting confused about that, but, well, sort of a game can be 10 out of 10, but nothing can actually be perfect because the concept is kind of skewed. Anyway, my question for you this week is, how would you improve upon it? Through DLC maybe, or some other form, maybe some refinements throughout the game and changing some things up? Let us know down there in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then why don't you talk yourself hoarse over that subscribe button? Seriously, it really hurts. And be sure to check out NintendoLife.com for all sorts of lovely Nintendo-related content. Thank you again for watching. Bye-bye.